Most of the Metal Gear Solid fandom hates Huey Emmerich, and I'm one of them. Does Huey deserve all the hate though? Is what he's done really bad enough to warrant exiling him from Mother Base? Welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Luffy and welcome to my channel. I talk video games and character analysis, so if that's your thing, subscribe and stick around. Heads up, this video will have spoilers for Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker, Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes, Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain, and I'll mention a few points from Metal Gear Solid 2, but nothing that spoils the ending of the game or anything. Peace Walker. Huey in Peace Walker seems like such a different character from his MGS5 counterpart at first blush. His story mirrors his son's Otacon's, or maybe Otacon mirrors his since Huey's his father? If we take a closer look though, we'll see Huey's hypocritical, cowardly nature shine through. Huey is working on Metal Gear Peace Walker, a bipedal tank capable of launching a nuke for Hot Cold Man. Cold Man intends to use Peace Walker to launch a nuke and prove how deadly capable it is to everyone else in the world. The second Huey learns of Coldman's true plans, he refuses to work on Peace Walker further. Furthermore, he also joins forces with Big Boss, who wants to stop Peace Walker, and tells him how to sabotage the Metal Gear. Huey gives BB his card keys so that he can access the labs where Peace Walker is, and sabotage the AI boards for Peace Walker. It's great that once Huey learned of Peace Walker's darker purpose that he worked to take Peace Walker down, but does that make up for his work on Peace Walker in the first place? How much of his naivety excuses his actions? Or should he have not been working on a weapon in the first place, regardless of whether it was going to be used as a deterrent or more aggressively than a deterrent? BB's unable to sabotage Peace Walker in the labs, but Huey presses on and tells BB the location of Peace Walker's final testing site in the hopes that BB will be able to stop the Metal Gear there. After Coldman's betrayal with Peace Walker, Huey considers quitting working in his field of science. He doesn't want to make weapons for people like Coldman to use. Instead of quitting though, Huey joins MSF and goes to work for BB instead. Here's where we first get a taste for Huey's hypocritical nature. While working at MSF, Huey builds Metal Gear Zeke. Zeke is outfitted, ironically, with the nuke MSF recovered from Peace Walker after its destruction. Huey's okay with this though. He isn't disturbed by the parallels Zeke paints with Peace Walker. It seems Huey considers motivations behind an action more important than an end result. Huey expresses he trusts Zeke being armed with a nuke because BB was always honest with his intentions, as opposed to Coldman, who manipulated everyone around him to achieve his private goals. At the end of the day though, Huey is still working with a Metal Gear armed with a nuke that's ready to fire at anyone who opposes MSF. Zeke can even be sent out on field missions with a team of MSF soldiers to fight opposing PMCs. Zeke is a weapon in every sense of the word and isn't sitting around Mother Base collecting dust, ready only for the day someone else tries to wipe out MSF. It's in active use against MSF's contracted enemies. To me, working on Zeke after Peace Walker makes Huey a giant hypocrite. Regardless of intentions, Huey's actions brought about the same results, though instead of Coldman having a Metal Gear at the ready to do his bidding, BB does. Are we supposed to excuse this because we like BB better than Coldman? Moving on, Zeke gets hijacked and turned against MSF. Huey is horrified and wonders if all deterrents were destined to be used as weapons to threaten people with. Though, Huey isn't so horrified that he wants Zeke destroyed. Once the Metal Gear is safely back in MSF's hands, it's repaired and ready to be used against MSF's enemies. Huey even suggests BB practice mock battles with Zeke in case it's ever hijacked again. By the end of Peace Walker, Huey shows he isn't actually concerned with Metal Gears existing and people having nukes on hand. He just wants to make sure that the people with those weapons are people he personally feels he can trust. He's a total hypocrite. He starts off designing a weapon he's fooled himself into thinking will be used as a deterrent only, though a deterrent is only effective as a deterrent if the people wielding it is ready to use it, so eventually Peace Walker would have been used against people. Metal Gear Solid 5. In MGS5, Huey flips from trusting BB completely, trusting him so much in fact that he builds Metal Gear Zeke for him, to not trusting him one bit. MSF gets a letter from the UN requesting they let the UN inspect them. Kaz and BB decide they've done nothing to garner suspicion from the UN and send a refusal letter. Huey doesn't agree with their decision though and sends a second letter to invalidate the first and accept their inspection. This puts everyone on MSF at risk, and, not to sound like Kaz or anything, costs them a ton of money. They now need to hide their Metal Gear and the nuke it's equipped with, which they decide to do by sinking them temporarily to the bottom of the ocean. They also need to fly all the civilians off base for the inspection too. Do you know how much all of that would cost? The helicopter ride for the civilians and then sinking and retrieving a whole Metal Gear would be wildly costly. And for what? Because Huey got nervous and couldn't stomach telling the UN no? Or did he suddenly see the error of his ways and want Zeke and its nuke to be confiscated by the UN? The UN inspection ends up being a farce, a Trojan horse to get XOF's strike team onto Mother Base so they can destroy it. Only 12 MSF soldiers survived XOF's attack, not including BB, Kaz, or Huey. Huey survived without a scratch, and so when he reunites with Kaz and the Diamond Dogs, Kaz and Big Boss's new PMC, he's accused of having worked with XOF. All signs point to Huey's involvement. He escaped without a scratch, rolled out the red carpet in direct opposition to his boss's orders, and disarmed all the soldiers on base for the inspection. There's no hard evidence to convict Huey of his involvement, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was, especially once we take a look at what Huey does while on the Diamond Dogs' Mother Base. Huey proves he's ready to jump ship for the highest bidder. Before Huey ends up on Mother Base, he ends up joining XOF and building a Metal Gear for them, Metal Gear Sahelanthropus. Sally was meant to terrify the entire world into complying with Skullface's demands. Skullface is so much more evil than Hot Cold Man. I don't know why Huey stomached working for Skullface, but stood up to Hot Cold Man. Huey says they were forcing him to work on Sally, but a game ago, Huey was refusing to work for Hot Cold Man, even when he threw him down a flight of stairs. Not only does Huey build a Metal Gear for Skullface, it's also revealed that he's done a ton of other terrible things. Throughout MGS5, we learn that Huey suffocated Dr. Strangelove, the mother of his son, in the AI pod they'd been working on together. He also uses his son to test Sahelanthropus since he's small enough to pilot it. Huey destroys his family. When there's an outbreak of vocal cord parasites on Mother Base that's causing tons of casualties, Venom does everything he can to find a cure. Once that cure is administered and the base starts to recover, Huey sabotages the cure so that it's no longer viable, and the soldiers on Mother Base start to succumb to the parasite once again. He sabotages the cure so he can sell this stronger version of the virus to the highest bidder. When Venom has to put down the soldiers suffering from the parasite, Huey lambasts Venom and tries to make him out to be the root of the soldiers' suffering. Venom exiles Huey for his crimes, and you'd think that'd be the last of him, but we get a quick update in MGS2. Huey went on to marry a mom with a daughter, Emma Emmerich. Huey's end came in the form of him trying to drown himself and Emma and only succeeding in drowning himself. Huey's vile to the very end. Can anything excuse Huey's behavior? Shockingly, Huey isn't universally hated. There are people out there that make excuses for his actions, much like how Huey makes excuses for himself. I wanted to address some of the points people make when defending Huey. First, I've seen people say you can't prove that Huey pushed Dr. Strangelove into the mammal pod to suffocate. The audio we hear of Dr. Strangelove is after she's already been trapped in the mammal pod, and I will agree and say it is weird that we don't get to hear Dr. Strangelove and Huey's argument about Huey using their son as a test subject for Sahelanthropus, or the exact moment Dr. Strangelove gets shoved into the mammal pod. But who's to say they didn't have that argument in another room and then Huey saw his chance when they were working on the mammal pod later and shoved her in without warning? Because we don't get to hear the exact moment Dr. Strangelove gets shoved into the mammal pod, I've seen people hypothesize that Skullface was actually the one to shove Dr. Strangelove in, and Huey just failed to let her out. What motivations does Skullface have to do this? Dr. Strangelove was actively working on designing/improving the AI for Sahelanthropus. He was motivated to keep Dr. Strangelove alive. Huey was motivated to end Dr. Strangelove. She was interfering with his work on Sahelanthropus and preventing him from using their son as an experimental pilot for Sally. Maybe that could be interpreted by Skullface also seeing her as interfering, but Sally was designed to be piloted by an AI first and foremost. Editing Luffy here. I know Skullface says he isn't going to make the same mistake as Hot Cold Man by using an AI to control Sahelanthropus, but Dr. Strangelove specializes in AI, and was working on the project from the start. Why involve her and design a Metal Gear that literally can't support an adult pilot if you weren't playing around with controlling Sally with an AI? Huey was just messing around, trying to find a solution to give Sally the ability to be piloted by a person too, despite its flawed designs that only allowed a child-sized pilot seat. Plus, Dr. Strangelove is leagues above Huey as a scientist. Why would you get rid of your top scientist in favor for some loser whose claims to fame are ideas he stole from someone else? Also, Huey clearly knew Dr. Strangelove was locked in the AI pod and would either die by suffocation or starvation, if he didn't know the AI pod was airtight. Not only does Dr. Strangelove call out to him directly, but Huey doesn't say a word when Dr. Strangelove's last words are played out by the AI pod. If Huey didn't know what happened to Dr. Strangelove, he would have reacted with shock when it was revealed she died in the pod. Huey first tries to blame Dr. Strangelove and say that she locked herself in the mammal pod on purpose, despite her clearly calling out for him to let her out, and then follows up his accusation with,
"And even if I did, what right do you have?"
What right to what, Huey? Calling you out for ending Dr. Strangelove's life? Who has the right to call you out on that? Should we call the police? How ridiculous. Huey just doesn't want to take responsibility for what he's done when he's faced with it. And just like you can lie by omission, you can murder by not taking action that would save someone's life. We've been playing through Red Dead Redemption 2, and right in the beginning, some guy recognized me from Blackwater. I had two options: let him live and possibly spread info about me that would lead to my arrest, or end him. I chased him down while I debated my options, and suddenly a third option opened up. This guy ran straight for a cliff and slipped off, but was holding on for dear life, Mufasa style. I realized my problem was going to take care of itself and sat back to wait for his grip to fail and for him to fall off the cliff. Do you know what happened when he did? The game lowered my honor because I could have saved him and chose not to, so I was responsible for his death. Also, I was suddenly wanted for murder, which was pretty rude. Huey leaving Dr. Strangelove to suffocate in the AI pod was the same as me stepping back to let that guy fall off the cliff. Both were totally avoidable. Huey was absolutely the person who shoved Dr. Strangelove into the mammal pod to suffocate. But even if he wasn't, he was still responsible for what happened to her when he refused to open the mammal pod to let her out. I've also seen people shift the blame from Huey to BB for MSF's destruction. By obtaining a nuke and a Metal Gear for themselves, people argue that BB invited MSF's inevitable destruction.
Anybody who tries to restore the old balance wants to snuff us out of existence.
It's true that the world wouldn't want to see a PMC with no ties to anyone stockpiling nukes and would have a vested interest in destroying them, but BB and Cause had that handled. They'd rejected the UN inspection on the basis that publicly they weren't known to have any nukes and that rejection was working. It wasn't until Huey sent a second letter to accept their inspection that it hit the fan. And at the end of the day, it wasn't even a true UN inspection, so it wasn't the world that was trying to take them down. It was a strike force from Zero gone rogue. That's not the world. It's possible and even likely that BB and MSF were destined to end badly, but the way things did end still came directly through Huey's actions. We did a poll here on YouTube that asked whether or not Huey deserved all the hate. Y'all decided in a landslide that he did, and there were a couple of really interesting points brought up that could excuse Huey's behavior. Aliyah Maladin, and sorry if I butchered that, suggested Huey was given a surgical implant in his brain that changed his behavior between MGS-PW and MGS-5. The surgical implant also prevented him from revealing the locations of XOF or Zero / the Patriots, and I really love this theory. It's pretty fantastical in my opinion, but I think that's the only way we could truly forgive Huey for what he's done. If he had a surgical implant making him act the way he does. Daniel Beckman asserted that Huey was placed purposefully within Diamond Dogs to help sell the idea that Venom is BB. Daniel asks, how do you convince someone that they are Big Boss? You have to put them in a situation where the whole world is trying to end them, even within their own ranks. This is a super interesting idea. It's true that Venom was probably so busy putting out fires both outside of Diamond Dogs and within it that he didn't have time to question his position. All of that being said, I haven't seen a single argument for Huey that made sense when looking at the facts of the game. I've only seen people who cherry-pick moments and make excuses for Huey, again, much like how Huey makes excuses for himself. This isn't me saying you shouldn't like Huey as a character, by the way. I just think we don't need to make excuses for villainous characters, even if we like them. Let me know down in the comments if you like Huey as a character and why. It's commendable how hateable Huey is. Not a lot of characters are as irredeemably despicable as he is, so I can see why some people would appreciate that about his character. Does Huey deserve all the hate he gets? In my opinion, yes. I only wish we'd done something a little more permanent to Huey than just exiled him in MGS5. But then we would have created a time paradox, I suppose. Thank you so much for making it to the end of today's video. If you liked it, please like, subscribe, and turn notifications on. It really helps me out. If you need more MGS content, check out my Patreon. I upload articles I write on upcoming videos or just thought pieces on MGS in general. Or join us in Discord, we're always talking about MGS. More importantly than that though, please take care of yourself and I'll catch y'all in the next one. Thank you.